So, something I hear pretty regularly when talking about the end times, and I'm sure you've heard it too, is why bother study the end times if scripture makes clear that you can't know the day or the hour of Jesus' return? And in response to that, I like to say that we might not know the day or the hour, but Jesus made it pretty clear that we can know the events and the time and the season surrounding his return. Now, let me explain that. In Matthew 24, which is where we see that verse that nobody knows the day or the hour, Jesus literally spends 35 verses explaining the events, the social dynamics, the cosmic disturbances, and crucial things that are all going to take place before his return. For 35 verses, he sets us up. And then we come to that verse, and it's one verse saying, you're not going to know the day or the hour. Well, I don't think Jesus gave us all that information and 149 other chapters in the Bible that all talk about his return if he was just going to say, but you know what? You don't need to worry about studying it. It's not a big deal. Why bother? No, actually, what he does in that verse, and we're going to look at it, is he sets us up to say, you may not know the exact timing, but I'm going to make sure that you know and are watchful to see what are the dynamics so that you can know when you see these things start to take place, know that the time is short, know that it's near. You're not going to know the exact timing of it, but know that it's coming and be prepared and be watchful. So let's look at that verse in the context really quickly. We see that verse in Matthew 25, verse 36. And what happens is directly after, Jesus goes into giving us two examples. The first one is Noah, and the second one is about a master watching over his house and a thief. So about Noah, Jesus says that his return is going to be as like the days of Noah were. That in the days before the flood, life was continuing on as normal. People were eating, drinking, marrying, being given in marriage, until the day that Noah went into the boat. And we see in 2 Peter 2 verse 5 and Hebrews 11 verse 7 that Noah, when he received the information, when he received that divine warning of what was about to take place, it says that one, he started to obey and he built the ark, but two, Hebrews calls him a preacher of righteousness, that actually he was telling people and he was declaring the things that were about to come. And it ended up being a condemnation to other people because they just said, Noah, you're crazy. It's never even rained before. What are you talking about? Water falling from the sky and a flood that's going to kill us all. You're crazy. But Noah, by preaching it, it fell on their deaf ears, so they were accountable for what they heard, but they didn't take heed. They didn't start preparing themselves for something that was going to happen. They just did business as usual until the day that Noah went into the ark, and then the flood came suddenly and destroyed them all. So what the example, the point of Jesus bringing up Noah in this context is saying, if you see all of these events, if you see all of these signs that Jesus unfolded in the last 35 verses, he said, you have to take heed. You have to be watchful. Know that that's the divine warning that things are going to come down the drain, and start preparing yourself. Even though life will seemingly go on as business as usual, you're still eating, you're still drinking, marriages are still happening and all of that, you have to be watchful. You have to prepare yourself and know so that the destruction doesn't come upon you suddenly. And to re-emphasize that point, we see the next two verses talk about two men in the field, one both working, and then one will be taken, the other left, and then two women grinding at the mill, one will be taken and the other left. Well, the point of that is to re-emphasize what Jesus was just giving us in the passage about Noah, that life is going to go on as usual. Things will seemingly be business as usual, except for these crazy signs and events that are going to be taking place. And it'll be just, if you're not watchful and if you're not prepared, it'll be in a moment the destruction will come. So Jesus gives us the warning again in verse 42. In light of right after these people being taken, one taken and the other left, Jesus says, watch therefore, for you do not know what hour your Lord is coming. He doesn't say you're not going to know the hour, but so don't worry about it. He says, because you don't know the hour, make sure you're watching, make sure you're ready. And the second example that he goes to right after that verse is about the master who's watching over his house for the thief. And it says, if the master of the house had known, if he had heard before that a thief was coming to break into his house that night and steal, well, the master would have set up, precautions. He probably would have set some booby traps or stayed up all night. He wouldn't have gone to sleep, and he would have been watchful so that he would be able to catch that thief. And so Jesus says in verse 44, you also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. So again, it's not an opportunity for us to just cop out or for us to say, we don't know the day or the hour. No, because we don't know the hour, we have to be watchful. We know he's coming. And so we want to be like a master who's watching, who's ready for Jesus's return. And I love that in Luke 21, which is the parallel passage to this, to Matthew 24, Luke 21, Jesus adds, watch and pray always. Well, what does it mean to watch and pray always? To pray always means that you would have a prayer life. It doesn't mean that you're literally maybe praying 24/7 every second of the day. It means to make sure that you have a prayer life. Make sure that prayer is a big, important part of your life. And to watch is to make sure that we are aware of the biblical signs, aware of the things that the Bible talks about, and that we're taking heed. We're being watchful of seeing even these things that Jesus talks about, the events in Matthew 24 and the cosmic disturbances and the social settings, that when we're seeing that happen and play out in real life, our spirit is alert and we're taking those things to the Lord in prayer. We want to make sure that we have a watchful spirit, that we have a prayer life, that like Noah, we know that even though it's never rained before, even though these things that we read are so strange and sometimes feel so out of the left park, that our lives are intimately in communion with Jesus, that we have intimacy with him. We know what he's like, we know who his character is, what his nature is, that he's all about reaching the greatest number of people at the deepest levels of love. And he wants us to be with him forever. And we get to be watchful. We get to be those who don't get caught unalert at the things that are happening and taking place in the earth. So my exhortation to you is, are you watchful? Are you praying always? Is prayer a priority in your life? Do you feel not ready? I don't know if anyone can feel ready, but are you doing the things in your life needed to prepare your heart for the events and the things that Jesus says is going to happen before his return? And if not, I exhort you, reorient those things in your life, change those things, get them in order so that even though life will go on as normal day by day and you're eating and you're drinking and life is happening, but that you have a life of prayer and you have a life of watching and being ready and awaiting the Lord's return.